Tonight, I would love to talk about our lack of self esteem, how it affects pretty much everybody, how it's affected everybody, how deeply it's affected everybody, and what we can do to begin reclaiming an elevated sense of self, to lift ourselves back up, and to be aware of both the process that got us to the point where we lost our self-esteem and how to elevate it, but being aware of what these processes are. Because when we become conscious of that which we have been unconscious of, we can begin to start reconstructing a sense of self that is so elevated and so far beyond anything we could even begin to imagine that our current circumstances that we're experiencing in the world, that we feel within ourselves in response to what we're experiencing in the world, can be positively effectuated to a degree that we can notice immediate results, but also results that are going to become sustainable if we keep at it. So let's start here. For most of us, when we were kids, and it's pretty much happened to everybody as a kid, in one way or another, a lot of us were brought up in modern public school systems. Some were lucky enough to not. They were homeschooled, but most of us were in school systems, and nobody really wanted to be there. I mean, even the kids that excelled in school and did well, when you ask them, obviously they didn't really want to be there. So usually one or many different things happened to each and every one of us. One of them, like for me, I was bullied really bad as a kid. But it started with just somebody saying just some unkind things to me, and it hurt my feelings. I was a really, really sensitive kid, and so it hurt my feelings. And then that set off a cascade of me losing my self-esteem. And because it was such an impactful thing to me, I continuously, but unknowingly, sought out situations that would bring more of that, because I had become addicted to the stress chemicals that resulted as a result of being picked on and bullied. Now, other people, who aren't as sensitive still had all kinds of stuff happen to them. They might have been a little tougher on the outside and it might not have affected them that much, but it still affected them. So those of us who are really sensitive, we felt how much it affected us right away. Those who were not as sensitive still felt it, but they may not have been aware of the impact it was having on them. So here's what happens when we get hit with something that knocks us off course, that makes us feel inferior or less than or not as good as or whatever. A lack of love, a lack of trust, whatever it was. This creates a neural network in our brain and body that activates our stress hormones. And so once that happens, we have in our body a response to more of these things happening. It's like our body becomes conditioned by the initial impact to unconsciously seek out more of the same. If you follow me, if you get what I'm saying. So we did this happened to everybody. We got whatever, picked on, bullied, beat up, spit on, pissed on, whatever. But that set up the framework for us losing faith in ourselves. The awe and wonder, the joy that we felt as children growing up began to diminish. And in place is a neural network that is actually seeking out the chemical rush of that initial trauma because it was so relevant. I mean, it really, really has a big impact. Whether we're aware of it or not, that's what happened. So then, as we grow up, we get tougher, we get whatever, we grow up, we get a little bit more mature. But those neural pathways that were initiated by those initial reactions, by those beginning reactions, have become imprinted in us. And so we're consciously and unconsciously seeking to recreate that. And we do this over and over and over again, to the degree that the way we communicate with people is based upon this diminished sense of self-esteem. The way we plan our lives, the choices we make, the kinds of people that we interact with, this all is literally a reflection of, boom, that initial impact, that initial trauma. But we don't know that. We don't realize that. We just think it's normal because that's what happened to us. So here's what we can do about that. When we recognize the mechanism that caused us to get, quote unquote, enslaved into a low frequency state of being, you could say, that we then perpetuate throughout all the circumstances and relationships of our lives, then we can use that very same mechanism, once we're conscious of it, to recreate new neural networks, new neural pathways that are based upon an elevated sense of wellness, an elevated sense of well-being, the contrary feeling to what we initially felt. And the way that that happens is by us as individuals choosing. Yes, Lonnie said it goes back to the Roman Empire. Absolutely. It goes for hundreds and thousands of years that we know of. This could have been going on. So it's deeply embedded in our genetics. But that's another story. It's another video. We can get into that. But here's the thing. These neural networks are there. They have become so deeply ingrained in our sense of self that we began to embody them and identify with them. Literally identify with them to the degree that it makes up our identity. So when you realize, okay, and this is what it comes down to open your focus. Okay, you have to realize that you incarnated into this world as this person, this being that you are, but it was a blank slate for the most part, not considering past life stuff or even the stress response based upon our genetics. We became whatever that was, okay, whatever it was that triggered that and made it, by choosing to feel loving feelings, to, I don't feel any self-esteem, instead to feel confidence, to feel worthy, to feel good, to feel, you're choosing to feel the opposite of whatever lower frequency vibration initially impacted you and traumatized you. And by creating a habit out of doing that every day, over and over, and literally just continuously doing it, you can reprogram not just your brain, because these neural networks go everywhere. They're all through our body. In fact, the glands around our body, okay, our pituitary gland, our pineal gland, okay, our thyroid gland, our thalamus gland, the solar plexus, right, the navel, the sexual organs, the genitals, these all have neural networks. They all have neural structures, neural pathways that are affected by these initial traumas. So when we realize that we have unconsciously been subjected to something that has created a literal physical structure that has kept us repressed and oppressed and just down, and kept us in this really narrow lens of perspective, because it's what we knew, it's what happened to us, and we've accepted that as our reality. We've accepted that as normal. And so we've unknowingly perpetuated that, thus reinforcing the strength of these neural networks, embedding them deeper into our sense of self, into our reality, into the way we perceive reality, our perception of reality. So when we realize that happened to us unconsciously and choose to consciously feel elevated feelings, to feel loving feelings, and make a habit out of it. And to be kind of crude here, make a habit out of it like a drug addict does a drug, right? Like an alcoholic needs to have that drink, like a whatever. The way we do anything in an addictive kind of way is the type of energy we need to bring into this in the beginning, when we're reprogramming or recreating a sense of self that will allow us to rise above the old conditioning that has kept us back. So I've been doing this for years and years and years of my life. And over the past 3 years, I've really, really stepped up my game, because it's clear, right? Look at the world that we live in. We live in a world that is so fundamentally disconnected from the essence of what it truly is, that people cannot help but live in a state of fear, which invokes a stress response. And when that happens, those organs of your body are creating stress hormones that are flooding the rest of your body, that are creating neural networks in your brain, in all of the glands in your brain, in your throat, your thyroid gland, where you speak, the way you express yourself is based upon stress hormones coming through it. In your heart, where it matters most, right? That's where there's a tremendous amount of stress. In your solar plexus, right? Plexus, it's a neuron, it's ganglia. It's literally, a ganglia is a group of neurons that have fired and wired together. All of these centers of our body have been conditioned unconsciously by us reacting to stress-based situations initiated by our initial stress response to whatever it was that first knocked us out of balance, that first took our self-esteem and just diminished it. But when we truly trust in the power that our own consciousness is capable of, literally letting go of everybody, of everything that we think we know about who we are and what this world is, and opening our focus, literally opening up. Allow your mind to open, allow your heart to open. Realize that each and every one of us, that you are existing as a sentient being on a living blue and green spinning rock that is vortexing throughout a solar system, inside of a galaxy, inside of a universe, inside of a multiverse, inside of something that there is no way to even consciously comprehend, with a limited state of mind that has been conditioned by the hormones of stress, by the fear of reality. When we realize that we can open up that much by choosing to, and continuously opening up, making the choice over and over and over and over. Oh, somebody's saying something bad. It doesn't matter. It's not your problem unless you take it on. And that's what we do. We take it on because we don't know. We just think it's normal. We're like, oh, that's the world. But when you realize that whoever is throwing their quote unquote shit on you was also at one time just a little child who probably also had something traumatizing, no matter how big or small, happened to them. They are in that place. So you are choosing to rise above the conditions of your own reactivity, to rise above the conditions of what others project onto you, and start embodying this, start practicing it, start literally making this your number one priority. This is what I've done. I've made it my number one priority to love this life force that is animating my being, that is beating my heart, that is wiring all my organs together. And I have found that by consistently loving this life so thoroughly, so endlessly, so consistently, that new neural networks form. Okay, and these new neural networks are now there, and instead of pumping out the frequency of stress hormones that are driving them, they start pumping out the frequency of your conscious intent to love yourself. And when you make a habit out of doing this, and you make a practice out of doing it, you get results that are so profound, but you've got to do it. And so what I do is, I've started with the heart. People who listen to the things I talk about, I'm going to be doing a lot more on this. I'm going to be giving a lot more specific instructions because I know how well it works when you apply it. But you gotta bring the kind of energy of a drug addict at first, because you need to conjure up the will to have a better, elevated state of being. You have to want that more than the suffering and the limited perspective that you have unconsciously wired into your perception of reality. So when you've made that decision and you're like, that's it, I am not going to live with a narrow lens of perception that is keeping me feeling like I am stuck or trapped or not worthy or not good or whatever lower fear, anxiety-based emotions that there are, and instead replace those with, okay, this was perfect. Everything that happened to me in my life was perfect. All the stress, all the bullying, all the abuse, everything that happened was perfect. Because now that I realize the impact that that stuff had on me and the neural networks that it wired through all of these beautiful glands and ganglia and neural centers of our entire being, when I realized that all of that happened so that I could wake up to consciously choose to rewire, to reprogram, to recondition all of the same neural networks that have been unconsciously conditioned, then suddenly I start to transform. You start to transform. We start to transform. And I can tell you, I have worked so diligently at doing this. Every one of the major centers in my body, right? There's lots of different, yoga calls them chakras, Qigong calls them dantians. There's lots of different names and different functions, but here's the reality. There's way more than we even know about, okay? Literally way more. The chakra systems are a great place to work because they're just loaded with neural networks, like ganglia. They're loaded, and a lot of it is stress-based, it's fear-based. So when you start to feel love, you open your perception, you realize that you are a living being on a living rock in space, and you realize that that's really what's going on. All the stuff that the world wants you to believe and that we do believe, and that does matter to a certain degree, but that is also holding us back, is very, very small in comparison to what we really are and what is really going on. And the only thing that is preventing us from being in coherence or in harmony with the very same forces that keep a planet alive, that give birth to new species of animals, of plants, of everything that exists here, the same energy that allows planets to rotate around the sun, that allows the entire system to be rotating around other systems. The solar system's rotating within a galaxy, and that's the galaxy is rotating within a universe. These are all major systems that are so deeply grounded into our cellular and genetic makeup. All of it is. But, and it's always there. It's always there. But it's not there if you have if you have unconsciously conditioned yourself to live in a state of being that is stress based, that is fear based. Because when you're living like that, you're in survival mode. You can't think about anybody or anything but yourself because you're surviving. That's all you're doing. You're surviving. So feeling your connection just, to yourself is not even really existent for most people, much less feeling a connection to nature, or feeling a connection to the universe, or whatever. And Kate, when you begin to consciously program all of the ganglia, all the neural networks, all of these nerve centers that are not only what we call the chakra systems, medical terminology gives them different names. They call them glands, right? Pituitary gland, all these different glands, all those, whatever you want to call it, okay? These exist all throughout your entire body. The major ones are obviously in the center of your body, all connected to your spine, but they're also in your hands, they're in your fingers, they're in your wrists, they're in every single part of your body. And so the more in coherence you get by loving your life, loving this beautiful force of energy that is gifting you the opportunity to perceive reality through human senses, and you make that your priority, you make opening yourself up to and considering and feeling what that has the potential to represent to your current limited perception, then that limited perception, yeah, it's going to waver, it's going to falter, it's going to say, no, but me, poor me, I'm stuck, I'm a victim on this. It will begin to start breaking apart, because here's what happens. When you create new neural networks and you intentionally program each one of these glands in your body with that frequency of love, of trust, of all these elevated emotions, and there's tons of them that we don't even have words for, and there never will be words for, because they are frequencies that are so big, they are so vast, they're so beyond what we have the potential to think of or perceive with our current state of being. But we are absolutely in alignment with them now when we begin to disentangle our perception of reality with the parts of ourselves that have kept us down. Okay? And I'm telling you this like I swear to God, I'm telling you. Okay, I mean this with so much sincerity, and I mean this with such a yearning and such a desire to want others to recognize that they have the ability to do this. Everybody has the ability to do this, to love your life, and then just sit and be at peace with that and observe and slowly start programming it. Because the more you make a habit, okay, all a habit is just doing the same thing repetitiously over and over and over again until it becomes automatic. And the reason that happens is because a habit is created by firing and wiring all of these neural networks together, and then the energy of your consciousness is literally channeled into those neural networks. And that's why we keep doing the same things over and over and over again. But when you do what I'm suggesting, and that many people know is possible, and others suggest it too, then you begin to form new neural networks that are elevated, that are not contained in the limitations of collective human perception as it is. And the more that happens, the more you free up these old conditioned neural network patterns that have been enslaved in your body. And when you free these up by creating new neural networks that become ingrained in you, the energy field that you actually truly are, not the person you believe yourself to be or that the world taught you are, the energy field that you actually are becomes liberated when you form these new networks, because they begin to replace the old ones. Don't have room to exist. They're just there because you're not doing anything about it. That's it. And so they just keep doing it. That's what they do. They don't know. And it's just you unknowingly trained yourself to just be what you are. But when you knowingly, consciously, lovingly, intentionally, and enthusiastically, okay, because you gotta love this. This is a labor of love. Start to program yourself with, everybody knows. I mean, look up in the night sky. We know what we have access to. We know what's up there. We know what's in here. We know what is available to us. When we start to really embody that, to really bring that in, to call that back into us, then the parts of us that suffered, they don't have a place to live anymore. They just start to diminish. They just start to dissipate. They just start to go away. And then your entire perception of reality changes, because now you are resonating at a frequency that is so much higher than what most people are stuck in. And then guess what? You're not worried anymore. You're not worried about anything. You're not afraid to die, because you know the energy that is animating you right now is allowing you to be here in the first place. You're not doing this. You're not beating your heart. Yeah, you can affect it. There is a generous, loving, highly intelligent, beyond any human comprehension force of energy that is gifting us the opportunity to exist and perceive reality through these human senses. So when we take our human senses and we start focusing on it instead of, oh, me and who I think I am, and oh, this happened to me then, and this is why I've been doing this ever since. When we stop focusing on those things, which isn't that easy at first because it's been so habitually ingrained in you, which I'm hoping you guys are getting now. I'm sure some of you totally get this, but for those that don't get it, go back and listen to this from the beginning and really, really try to understand it, because I have put this to the test so repetitiously. I have literally made this my number one priority, because I know that this is the only way that I'm going to be able to be at peace with my life, with reality, with the world, and as a byproduct, your trauma, all the things that happen to you that keep you from this, that stuff just doesn't have a place to live in you. So this is a very direct, powerful, heart-based, but very direct. I was very direct tonight. I try to sometimes keep a little softer, more loving, because I don't want to be too intense. But what we're currently experiencing in the world right now, it's time to make it intense. It's time to ratchet up the frequency. You need to conjure the willpower. You need to make a decision with such strength that you are no longer going to live according to the old programs that you have unknowingly allowed yourself to be conditioned by as a result of living in this world. And when you truly just make yourself into a higher expression of that, then you can rest. Okay? Because it's like flexing a muscle. You go out, or building a muscle, you put in that rest, that work, you put in a lot of work, you build it up for a little bit, short burst of real intense thing, but then you relax. And you actually want to spend more time relaxing than you do building. But you need, especially at this time in the world, there's no more just sitting around. We need to reprioritize our focus. We need to shift our attention, because our attention is our energy. When we take our energy and stop recollecting, identifying, getting caught up in, being led by the trauma, the fears, the anxieties, the whatever from the past, and we start loving ourselves with intensity, like, my God, intensity, like, thank you, thank you, thank you. My God, I'm so grateful to be alive. When we literally start to program ourselves and all these neural network centers that are spread throughout our entire body and are actually around our body as well, our energy field, as we start to become the energy that we really actually are, the more in tune with that we get, the more we become aware that they're not exactly neural networks, but they're energy centers that are in and around our very field itself. So you start working internally, you start making these energy centers resonate with a higher frequency of your choosing, and that frees up, it liberates the energy that keeps you stuck. And the bigger picture is, the more you do that, the more it evolves, the more all that stuff goes away, then you begin to work on a completely different level where you are affecting the sources of energy that are contained within your energy field itself. And when that happens, you start creating a greater bridge of conscious coherence and you're totally consciously perceptive of this entire process. You literally begin to experience yourself feeling the coherent bridge between the energy field that you actually are, that is literally animating your human form, and how it relates to everybody, everything, everywhere, every place, every time. You become aware of how it is interrelated with all that, because you experience all of it as a part of what you are. And you're able to embody greater capacities of human perception by intentionally programming yourself with these elevated feelings of wellness, of love, of goodness, of wholeness. And things change. And guess what? It's not even really that big a deal, because this is what we were before we came into this form. This is what happens after this form. But for some reason, everybody forgot this is what's happening while we're in this form. So our job is to remember, okay, this is happening now too. But it's only going to happen if we intentionally choose to focus on it, really focus on it, more than anything, more than the kids crying, more than the fears of the coronavirus, more than the fears of this, that, the other. There's a million things we could focus on that we could be afraid of and that could stress us out and make us feel terrible about reality. Are you choosing to focus on that? Because most people are focusing on it and they don't even know that they have a choice to focus on anything other than that. But we do. And so when we choose to focus on those things and we do that consistently, okay, I'm as committed to this as can be, but I've worked my way up to it. We have lives, we have things going on. It's not as easy for a lot of people to just go all in and just wholly commit to this process the way I have and the way that some others are. But we're coming to a point in the evolution of the human species where many of us who are aware of this are being called and required to take responsibility for cultivating its potential within us so that the species itself can evolve to a more holistic state that is in harmony with the energy that is animating not only our physical being, but everybody else's physical being, and that is animating the entirety of the known and unknown physical universe, because that is how we're going to survive, okay? But not just survive, that's how we have the potential to more than thrive. This is what offers us the ability to begin healing. And look, you just gotta do it. You don't have to go all in, but you got to keep being consistent. You got to do it every day. And I have a lot of techniques, a lot of different things that I'll be sharing and talking with people, and to help inspire whoever's interested in hearing this stuff and applying it. But as a result of so many years of doing this, I can confidently say that I have narrowed in to a formula that works better than anything I've ever done. And the results that are coming out of it for my own personal growth, my own personal well-being, for my physical health, for my awareness of reality, for the nature of my consciousness itself, your soul literally evolves when you commit to doing this kind of work. So whether you do it for just 5 or 10 minutes a day, or you do it for 5 hours a day, it doesn't matter. Just start doing it and do it consistently, because you're going to know you're doing it right because the feeling feels better than any external stimuli. When you realize that you can invoke feelings of wellness from within yourself by your own choosing, to the degree that you're creating new neural networks all throughout these different energy centers and ganglion neural networks in your body, then before long, and you're doing it right, because before long, you start to feel it. When you feel your heart beating and throbbing in every single part of your body, you know you're on the right track, because it's accompanied by a sense of wellness and a sense of peace and a sense of well-being, a sense of elevation that feels better than any external stimuli. And believe me, I've tried every external stimuli I've ever been able to get my hands on or do or whatever. The most beautiful experiences that I've had with anything, with loving another human being, whether it's intimately, sexually, or just whatever, however that could be, drugs, there's nothing compares to how good it feels when you as an individual choose to make the inner world of energy within you more alive than the outer world of fear-based emotions and stress that have conditioned essentially the entire planet, to the degree that we have these outbreaks occurring and all kinds of issues. If it wasn't the coronavirus, it would be a trillion other things, because when, like I said in the beginning of this, when you have become wired to the hormones of stress, you're going to unconsciously be attracting more of that same, because that is the frequency that all these centers of your being is emanating and putting out there. So you're calling that to you, literally. But when you have that love, when you have that elevated sense of wellness and wholeness, and you have intentionally programmed that within you, you start attracting that to you. You start attracting people, places, situations, things that are going to support that. And before you know it, you're going to start attracting forces that there aren't even words for, that are going to be assisting you and supporting you in this process, because this is an evolution of human existence. It's an evolution of human consciousness. And those of us who feel this and know it are being called now more than ever to really step into it and embody it and live with it and own it and put it out into the world. So I shared a lot with you guys tonight. Those who loved this or liked it or were intrigued by it, I urge you to go back and listen to it over and over and over and over again, because essentially what you're going to be doing is that within yourself anyway. And don't listen to me. I want you to listen to yourself. If you resonate with what I'm saying, if you like it, great. But I'm just the messenger. It's you. You're the one. You are literally the one where this is happening inside of. And you have to take responsibility for that part of yourself and cultivate it and maintain it and nurture it and love it and breathe life into it until it becomes your reality. And when it does, and it will, okay, it will, because it's all there really actually is, then watch how things change in the world. Watch. Things will change. Things will change much quicker, because when you feel yourself in this way and you relate to, you just want others to feel that way, because you feel whole. You feel connected to your body, to nature, to the earth, to the universe. And those feelings elicit such humbleness, such wholeness, such peace, that you're like, why would I ever want to do or be or live in any other way other than this? So this is the most powerful. This is the drug of love. It's funny to think of it in these terms, and we're only talking these terms and saying this stuff just because this is what people can relate to, right? But it is literally the creative spark of life that gives birth to life itself. That's what we are. That's what it truly is. We can use whatever words or lingo or frame of reference that we need in the short term to get us into that state of remembrance. But once we're there, we begin to operate on levels that transcend all of those limiting beliefs, stories, ideas, words, languages, all of that. So thank you guys. Thank you for listening to this. Take it to heart. Literally take it to heart. Learn about heart-brain coherence. That's going to be a major, major thing that is going to be coming out. I've been saying this for a long time. But making a habit out of heart-brain coherence is the first step. So, love you guys. I will see you soon. Trust. Just trust. Just know you are in the right place at the right time. We are at the cutting edge of the human evolutionary process, and each one of us is literally here to play a role so significant that if we even knew, we would be down on our knees crying tears of joy, of gratitude, just for having the opportunity. All right. Good night, and I'll talk to you soon.